And hello once again. Jerzy Drozd, cartoonist and teaching artist. If you're new to this stream, I make comic books and graphic novels, and then I teach people how to do that too. And I'm working on a freelance comic project that I've been working, it's a series actually that I've been doing for going on a decade now. I'll back away so you can see the whole page. Captain Seriously and the Supermaster Sentinels, which, a lot of my recent streams have been around this page or this series. And just before it was time to stream, I realized that I had not scanned the inks or imported them into Clip Studio Paint for coloring yet. So I'm going to be doing some flatting today. And right now I'm just doing a little bit of touch up on some of the inks. Try not to correct too much stuff, because part of the look of this book that I'm working on is I'm trying to match it to... Oh, thanks, Chris. Going for it. Actually, you know what? It's probably been a while since we've seen each other, but I grew this in 2017 when I went to Death Valley with Anne, and I've just kept it ever since. Maybe it'll come off soon. It's kind of a drag to have this long of a beard with a mask, but what are you gonna do? A little discomfort is worth public safety. So yeah, this. Oh, come on, get the right pen and turn it to transparent pixels. So I'm specifically trying to make this. This is the book for first grade, and when I started the project, almost 10 years ago, the first book I did was for second grade. So I'm trying to go backwards a little bit in how I make my books to make this match visually the second grade's aesthetic, which I did with brush pen on Bristol. And actually, Chris, you are part of the inspiration for the style I chose for this too, now that I think about it, because it was, and I've quoted this tweet a lot. It was like a year ago or something. You said something about how, advances are not awesome in comics. So try to optimize your style to get for speed with quality, as good as you can get, but as fast as you can get, so that it actually is, your advances will go farther. And that just a whole bunch of tumblers clicked when you said that. And so ever since then, for the last I want to say year and a half, I've been really trying to find ways to optimize my work so that speed is in the hierarchy of priorities. Speed goes up several notches. And that was part of the rationale behind going to paper, was not only to match its style to the second grade books. I don't think any first graders could be looking at it going wait a second, this doesn't look like it was inked with the same tools as the next year. There's also, I knew that if I inked on paper, I wasn't going to noodle over it the way I'm noodling over it right now. So it's time that I stop and just start getting into flatting this thing. I can get my keyboard to work. Flats. Okay. Inks layer is now. There we go. Inks layer is set to be a reference layer. So now if I start dropping in flat colors with my paint bucket, it will interact with the inks layer. And let me get my palette for this book. Well, Chris, you happen to be a pretty thoughtful person. And so when you share thoughts like that, I take it seriously. But yeah, seriously, I have been quoting that tweet for like a lot over the last year, because it was I didn't realize until I thought about it, how much I had equated quality with time. Good work takes a long time to make, right? And that's true. So, can we find ways to make it a little faster so we can do more good work? So here we have Dame Lady Cat grumpy because of Turnbuckle Tootweiler's tantrum that he threw earlier. While she carries a casserole to the... Oops. Wherever these characters eat. Hey, Courtney. A whole bunch of my favorite cartoonists are coming to hang out. I am so grateful you're here. So I'm doing some flatting right now because the original plan was I was going to be coloring this during my live stream. But then, like, as I finished my work from the last hour, I was horrified to discover that I hadn't scanned my inks and gotten them ready to color. So I quickly scanned them. The most hated thing in the entire world. I so hate scanning. And then quickly dropped them in. And I haven't done a whole lot of like cleaning up my inks yet. I'm trying not to do too much with that. Let's see, where's my inks? Inks are there. Because I just spotted a mistake I made with Dame Lady Cat's ears here. Whoa, that's too big. Gotta get the right pen. So in this whole, as I was talking about just a moment ago, this idea of like trying to get like to speed, like emphasizing speed in my work. When I'm inking, I'm trying not to fix too many things, right? Like, so that's one of the reasons I went to paper is get my page 2. Where's my page 2? Or 3, actually. That's the page I want. Here's the previous page I colored. So really trying to turn off all my... That's what I want, is this color. There's this expression in Natalie Goldberg's books on writing is like, keep your hand moving. And I'm thinking about that when I'm doing this too. Like, try not to like, and we know this when we're writing, right? Like, this idea of like, don't let the editor get involved when you're drafting. I'm trying to think about that when I'm inking. Well, I'm in agreement with you, Courtney. Scanning is not fun, but one of the reasons I'm doing inks on paper is that like I can't be trusted with digital inks. I spend too long on them, like way too long. Because I can zoom in so darn tight. And I know you can set your Clip Studio to like only let you zoom in so far. Check this out. Isn't this cool thing about the fill bucket in Clip? I can just like drag it and it will just like fill any place where it's detecting the same type of pixels as what it previously filled. So like for instance, I can sample this dark gray from the computer casing, right? Whoops. And I can drag it around here. But if it starts to connect with anybody else, like, see, it won't let me fill in Dame Lady Cat, but it will let me fill that casserole dish because that has transparent pixels. This makes flatting go a little faster. I think part of my problem too is I pencil entirely too tight, which is great for when I'm inking analog because I have like a really strong map to work with. But oops, wrong color. There's what I want. Okay, and let's color her casserole dish real quick, which I'm going to use the Seriously green as a inspiration for. Maybe need a little bit more yellow in there. It's a little too minty, isn't it? These are some kind of potatoes. Some kind of potatoes. So this is, I'm going to be demoing this tomorrow on the Lean Into Art cast. But check this out. So if I hide my inks now, you can see there's all sorts of gaps and holes in the flats, right? And that's a problem. This tool in Clip Studio called the Correct Line Width, which my buddy Aaron Polk introduced me to. Look at this. Whoop, 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 whoop. Just drag it over top, and it just like expands the pixels to fill the transparent areas. You have nice, crisp, perfect flats. It's kind of doing like an analog version of the old B-Pelt plugin. If anybody remembers that. It's like a Photoshop plugin that would like auto flat for you. And there we go. And then I turn my line art back on. It should be pretty darn good. I shouldn't need to touch anything up, right? Turn the opacity down on this just a tiny bit to make sure that my... Yeah, it's pretty solid flats. And so, oh, that tool? Okay, so that tool is in the bottom, it's in the very bottom of your leftmost toolbar in Clip. And it's nested along with your control point, pinch vector line, simplify vector line, redraw vector line width, and it's just called Correct Line Width. And in the subtool property settings, you can adjust how much it thickens your line by, how big the brush size is, whether or not you want to process the whole line if it's like a vector line. Because that's another thing is like when I'm inking in vector, sometimes I'll zoom in too much and I'll have a whole bunch of little tiny lines that like aren't going to print. And so I'll just take this tool and just go zip, zip, zip over top of the vector lines, and I'll bump everything up by like 1 point or 2 points, however many I tell it to. So it's called Correct Line Width. And then, isn't that an amazing tool? It's just, every time I think like, oh, Clip's figured out how to solve all of our problems. Like, oh, we got one more. We'll fix one more for you. So it allows me to do flats even on stuff with like soft brush stuff like this, right? And actually, I'll just like quickly, and like when I'm doing the stuff fixing with a pen, I don't have to be super precise about it. Just drag over top, whoops, touch the outside. As a matter of fact, right now, before I do anything else, I'm just going to fill that with white, so don't do that again. Nope, that's the wrong color there. Is that a minimum diameter for my pencil tool? Oh, that is a really good idea. Yeah. To prevent you from putting the wrong, like really tiny lines in the background. That's a great idea. Okay. Oops. Come on. Yeah, just scrub in for some of these. Charlie's hair. Let's set my paint bucket fill scaling a little bit bigger. The goal here for me is I'm trying to get at 30 minutes or less to flat a page. We'll see if I can pull it off. Is that done? I think that's done. Nope. Actually, that'll be filled in when I do the special thing with the band line tool. We have the villain breaking in. She has this weapon, this device that can steal people's feelings. So this is a book for first graders, and it's about one of the themes of the story is like managing your emotions. One of the lines of dialogue is that sometimes our feelings feel bigger than our bodies. What do we do about that? Very Mr. Rogers-y kind of stuff, but with superheroes. And I was trying to be very conscious of the fact that, like, okay, well, if this is going to be like a weapon, let's abstract it out, make it into some kind of weird shaped thing. Like a no, that's not going to be the right green. I think my first instinct was right. Put a warm color behind her. Where are the bad villains? Colors. I love this character's design. I'm really happy with it, but man, did I not do myself any favors with regard to like flatting her, because she has so many different colors on her. Come on, get in there. Ah. I think that expand is too big on this. I got smaller details now. Like pink. Purple goes here. You know what I mean? It's like she's find a better picture of her. Go to the 2013 book, character designs. Yeah, she's got a really, like I said, I like what I did with her, like celebrating like Transformers and Power Rangers villains with like some kind of like vampire thing. Like the color combination, I think she looks really sharp, but man, is she a drag to flat. And it's one of those things where when I was first starting the job, I had no idea how long it was going to last. I mean, like we talked very early on about like, oh, well, this thing could be a project where you make a book for every grade in the school eventually, you know, essentially making it like a 12-year job. But I didn't know that. I was like, I'm probably only going to do this once. So I'm just going to like go wild with my designs, really have fun with it. And then it's like, surprise, you're doing this every year now. I've actually drawn stories about these characters for 2nd grade through 10th grade. And obviously, the story changed as it got. I'm not doing exactly the same kinds of stories for 10th graders. I mean, that's part of the fun of this job. I was actually just talking about the 10th grade book. This is the 9th grade book. And actually I just put it on my overhead cam. It's gonna get you a little higher. It's very different, right? Like the style is totally different. The art, it's a little bit more like crispy. Like I specifically chose a different inking style to kind of make everything feel like it's covered in dust, because it's like in the 8th grade book, it became a post-apocalypse. And all the heroes and villains are dead. And these two youngsters are like sort of like bringing them back somehow. So like Dame Lady Cat is like an old lady now. She's got like big old glasses. And Turnbuckle Tootweiler got turned into a robot. And Captain Yarly lost an arm in some great battle, you know, and now she's like all grizzled. And this was also the big twist, is this character, Madeleine, who in the 5th grade book, like sort of struck up a friendship with Captain Yarly. That's the gal right here. Struck a friendship with her, and like it didn't go very well. It was one of those stories where we learn about like what crowds you want to operate within. But in the post-apocalypse story, she switched sides, and now they're really, really close friends. And obviously, she's like, what looks way different because she got hideously damaged in the final battle between the heroes and villains, and she repaired her. So, and then we introduced new characters. But so anyway, it's been a fun project to like sort of like evolve my own little micro superhero universe. Where I have a client that really trusts me. So, I mean, I have a lot of, I guess you'd call it creative control. Although I do it in the spirit of service, where I'm always like asking the school administrators and the organization that funds this, I'm like, well, tell me what this grade, like in your experience, what these students need to hear. Like, what kind of messages do you wish that they would internalize a little bit more? So I'm tailoring the content for them very intentionally. Look at like how this one is about managing your feelings. So I talked with the school administration. What are first graders dealing with, right? And I looked up literature on like childhood development, using that as a here's the page I just finished this morning. Using that as a creative prompt, right? Okay, where was I? I was on page 6. Did I get everybody? I think I did. Okay, so let's get the big monster behind her. I'm hoping schools get a little bit more forward thinking about that kind of stuff, about teaching emotional maturity. I mean, I know when I went to school, which was, a long time ago, like issues of bullying and things like that, like it was largely the teachers just turned the other way. Unless it got really out of hand. Like you had to really be like roughhousing and beating the heck out of each other before a teacher would get involved. And most of the time it was like, well, they got to sort it out. I had one really good teacher though, who was like very like for the time incredibly progressive and like really made sure that we understood that the world's a lot more complex than we think it is. But yeah, the whole premise of this project, and it's a grant funded project. It's actually funded by a National Endowment for the Arts and local Michigan grants. And so they have to be very clear about what their mandate is, and they say that they want to make sure that the kids of this community know that their community cares about them. I think that's amazing. Here's where it gets even like wilder is like when I finished the books, and this pre-COVID, what we would do is I would actually go with the coalition director to the school and visit the classroom where the comic was being given to the kids for free, and do a little presentation about like how comics work and whatnot. But they would always make sure they say like when they get there, they're like, we made this just for you. Nobody else in the world gets this, and it's just for you because your community cares about you. They always made sure to say that. What's gonna happen if I do that? Something bad, no doubt. Yeah, not too bad. Yeah, let's get our other heroes. Yeah, it's pretty meaningful for me. I mean, like this is something that I feel really lucky to be part of this because, like, Courtney, you know this. I mean, like, ever since the days of Kids Read Comics, which became A2CAF, is like, it's been sort of like a important thing for KRC as an organization is to celebrate children and connect them in meaningful ways with art. Because children are amazing and they should be respected. I'm not saying that everybody needs to love children, but we should respect them and treat them with respect. Let's turn off my paper layer so I can see if I missed any. I did. All right. So now let's turn it back on. No, we have to close some gaps here. Here's the gimmick of the book is when your feelings get stolen, you turn black and white, right? So it's a visual way of representing this idea. It's very rainbow bright, right? I'm not like making up like brilliant new things here, but so in page 6 of this 12-page story, she comes in, steals everybody's feelings with the feeling stealer, and even steals like all the colors of the base with this device. And then Dame Lady Cat turns to the children and says, "We need your help. Can you color us in so that we look brave? Can you color us in so that we look caring?" And so on. Like, it starts naming all of these feelings that are going to be associated, that we associate with different colors, a la Inside Out. And I'm even going to provide the teacher with a lesson plan to lead ahead of time, exploring this idea. So then the kids will be given this comic. The teacher leads a lesson on like how colors correspond to feelings. The kids get this comic, and then there's a prompt on page 7 where they're asked to help finish the story and help the heroes win by giving them coloring in their feelings. It doesn't get more wholesome than that, right? Like, I got goosebumps when I thought of it. Like, okay, this is a perfect way to like make this comic fully interactive. Oh, come now, save. Oh, Courtney, yeah, I feel your pain on that. In terms of like other comics festivals, like, don't get me wrong, I think pop culture is super fun, and I mean, like, you're talking to a guy who goes to He-Man conventions on purpose, right? And I'm not going to a He-Man convention to further my craft. I'm going there to say, like, aren't people in furry underpants awesome? So like, I get it. But as a comics creator, it was always frustrating for me when I would go to like big comic shows, and it would be mostly about like tchotchkes and toys and meeting people from some TV show. And that was very much what was on our minds when we were crafting A2CAF. And I feel like that was like 12 years ago now. I feel like I was probably a little bit more vocal than I needed to be about those issues. Like, how to make this a great show for artists. Because like everybody else was on board with it, but I was like attending it with a kind of ferocity. And then the right people came along and attended the show. I think that's the part of that project that was like the most meaningful for me, was that like people like you would come to the show and show up in the spirit of like, how do I help? Right? Knowing that if I connect with people in positive ways here, I'm probably going to sell more books rather than like just showing, going like, okay, well, what's in it for me? So like doing little things like the quick draw events and stuff where you get up in front of the public and like reveal how the craft works in a gameful, playful way, not only gives families like a really great experience meeting cartoonists, but it elevates cartooning as like, it makes people realize, and the irony is that like this gameful, playful event connects people with comics in a way that shows them that there's more to it than just silly play. Because like when they're watching you do those quick draws, to them it looks like a magic trick. But it's also revealing to them that there is a process to this in a way that isn't didactic. Oh, Courtney, that makes me so happy when you say things like that. I think that's like my other favorite thing about it is just watching the connections get made between people. Because like it doesn't have a reputation for being like a show where you make a lot of money, but it has a reputation for, you know, a show where you get to hang out with a lot of like-minded, fun-loving cartooning people. Oh, I found somebody to block today. Another bot. And there's another one. Let's block some spammers. How are we doing on time? All right, we're 38 minutes. Okay, so I'm a little bit over, but not too over. Oops, wrong thing. He shouldn't be colored in. Okay, I'm going to color him in this gray. So the good news is I think I only have one more page to color, and the rest of it's going to be all black and white. Well, I mean, to be fair about the whole issue of sales, Courtney, I mean, it's like, I do get it because, like, it's not inexpensive for you to travel, right? I mean, even if you're, like, going just across the state, there's going to be, like, costs for hotel stay. There's going to be costs to print up your materials, right? Like, it's like at minimum $1,000 endeavor. You know this, right? So, like, I get it that finding a way to, like, encourage people to buy stuff should be part of that calculation. I totally agree. But the sort of premise we laid out with Kids Read Comics and later A2CAF is that, like, well, if you get the right people to come, the people who like really believe in advocacy and like celebrating the form in a way that makes it more accessible to people, they will naturally sell well because the people there feel so great, right? Or at least, at the very least, we could say, you have what would you say? The guests have a better chance of making a really great impression, so that maybe they'll get the sale later. Maybe people go back. I met this really terrific person, and they made me feel great. But you know, it's like it's hard and it's complicated. And like one of the things we did with A2CAF is like, try to find ways to bring value to the artists in other ways, ways that like, well, can we make sure that they have something to eat? So they don't have to go out and look for something to eat and like take time away from their table, right? Can we make it clear to them that we are interested in their success? What signals can we send in that way? So there's like those intangible things too, right? Because there's again this idea that it's complicated and there's no simple answer, comes by way of the fact that yes, we have a responsibility to as festival organizers to create an event that attracts people so that the guests and exhibitors can have the opportunity to make money. But then there's also, it's up to the exhibitors to also be able to work their hustle in a very positive and meaningful way so that they can maximize the opportunity that's been given to them, right? So it's a two-way street, and finding a way to navigate that is tough. It's really tough. Oops, I goofed on that. I didn't fill in that balloon. Let's get the line art back on. All right. There's also a lot of education that needs to happen with partner institutions because, like, understandably, I did it again. Another balloon I didn't fill in. Like, this is something I talk about like when I'm training teaching artists is like, it is when we do client work, right? It is reasonable for our client to not understand what they're asking for sometimes because we are the one with the training. That's why they're hiring us, right? So if they don't know how to articulate like something that they want, or if they don't know how to articulate or they don't understand that the change they're asking for is really complex, it's up to us to educate them in those scenarios. I mean, yes, we can roll our eyes because we encounter it again and again and again. Yeah, totally. I roll my eyes too. Like when people say, "Can you make it 10% happier?" But at the same time, let's not forget that the reason they hired us is because they don't know how to do it. Otherwise, they have no need for us. And I feel like with developing Comic Cons or comics festivals with partner institutions, that same kind of education needs to happen. Let's just fill this all in. There we go. Because I don't remember, Courtney, if you came to the second year of Kids Read Comics. This would be like 2011, something like that. Yeah, there was a lot of communication that could have been better with our partner institution. We were in a different city, and there were a lot of things where I feel like we needed to have more conversations ahead of time because there were aspects of the show that weren't quite as successful as they could have been. And granted, it was our second year. I'm going to cut us some slack because we were inexperienced. All right, flatting is done. That took 45 minutes, 15 minutes over my budget. But all right, let's get my paint bucket and make Captain Seriously here white. And do a quick pass around the page to make sure the flats are all solid. Okay, yeah, 2012. Yeah, that would have been when we were back in Chelsea again. Yeah, that would have been right. No, 2009 was the first year. 2010 was the time we were in that different city. And then 2011 we were back in Chelsea, and then 2012 was our first year in Ann Arbor. You came for a good year. Like at that point we had kind of figured out what we were doing. And the Ann Arbor District Library was a really good partner in terms of like financial support. They invested a lot of money into making that show happen. That's when like the free lunches came about. Because I think in the 2010 show, like we, the festival organizers, were paying for the lunches. And that's no small amount for people who are doing this as a volunteer gig. All right. Flats are done. Let's make some adjustment layers. And save your work. Always save your work. And make 2 new layers. One is going to be a highlights layer. And set that one to layer mode lighten. Put it down 50% opacity. Second one we're going to call shadows. Bump it down to 50% opacity. And set that to multiply. Turn my flats layer into a reference layer. So I'm not going to use clipping layers at all with this. The way I color, at least for this project, save again, is I use the magic wand tool, set to refer to other layers, set to refer to the reference layer, area scaling is off, anti-aliasing is off, and then I just go to the panel in question, tap on it, and now it's selected that background color. And then on my highlights layer, I'm going to get my highlight color, which is in a different color palette. And just do a radial gradient for the light source. Go to my shadows layer, grab my pen tool, go to my shadows layer while the selection is still active, and then we're just going to draw in the shadows really fast. Like so. Neglected to get one piece of the background color. There we go. This. How about make this pen nice and big? Where am I going to put that shadow? About there. Highlights layer. Highlight color. Boom, 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 boom. And grab the Ray Frendon concept brush and just drag a couple streaks across there to give it like a little bit of a glowy sheen. Lately, tour libraries are paying you to show up. I do okay at shows because it's a day and within like 2 hours of home, but it certainly doesn't hurt. Yeah. So that's something that I would love to crack the code on. That is like finding ways to get funding to basically, I mean, I feel like a step in the right direction with A2CAF was making the tables free, right? Because like that was another like a chip I had in my shoulder with comics festivals where it's like, okay, wait a second. You're making me pay $350 to rent this table, and then I got to work my hustle to sell things. And meanwhile, the only people who are getting promoted are the celebrities that you paid to get here. So it seemed like, I get it. I get the constraints of what you're doing. Let's delete another bot. But there's got to be a better way to do it where it's more beneficial to the artists and exhibitors, right? Oh, got to lock my transparent pixels before I do this. There we go. Do some color holds. And even better if you can get the artists to be paid to be there. And then it's like, okay, well, you know, I've been compensated for this time, right? I'm not taking time away from my art to do this. Well, I am taking time away from my art to do this, but I'm being compensated for that time. And now it's like I'm not so worried about selling as much because my nut has been covered, and so to speak. So it's like I feel like that's the best scenario is if everybody who's there is paid to be there. So now you can just relax and give the public the best possible experience. I've heard from other friends of mine who have gone to like library festivals and they said they got paid to be there. And I just think that, yeah, that's the next level. And I'm not sure, but I have to think that it would only work for certain kinds of festivals, right? Like, well, literally festivals instead of conventions. Like when I think the way I think about the difference in those two terms, and I could be wrong on this, is that a festival is it's a celebration conceived to celebrate like one kind of thing. In other words, like, well, CXC, which I'm their executive director right now. It's it's in the mandate to celebrate the cartoon arts, right? Meaning that we're not celebrating, whoever's playing the Hulk in the movies, right? Nothing wrong with Mr. Ruffalo. He did a great job, but this there's other places for him to be celebrated. We're celebrating the people who make comics and cartoons. There we go. So I feel like because it has a narrower focus, it's probably like I imagine it's easier to get grant funding for those kinds of things. Writing grants is no joke, though. Okay, yeah, that's there. Let's get our shadows layer. I love this idea of the cat making dinner. That she made a casserole of all things. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do something that I don't normally do. I'm going to break out a different brush for this. I want to just have a little bit of texture to it. A little bit. Like it's going to show up in the print. It's not. Yeah, I can honestly say this is something I have not thought about. It's like, what does Dame Lady Cat eat? She's like, what? Y'all don't like Fancy Feast? What is everybody so grossed out about? Yeah, let's shade Yarly in real quick. Elected to get her little wrist computer there. And let's go to the flats layer because I got to add one last bit of color. Oh, I can just get it from over here, one of these earlier pages. They have these like little blue highlights on there, on their undershirts. There we go. Back to my shadows layer. Quick little. Save. You've done a little bit of work. Save your work. on, pen. There we go. Highlights. So normally I would be streaming on a Thursday morning. Schedule I made for myself was Mondays and Thursdays. But something came up tomorrow morning, so I'm going to be, so I moved it to today. Means that this is my last one of the week, and then I'll be back Monday again. Will I? Will you, Jerzy? Let's find out. What do you got scheduled on Monday, pal? Hey, I got a drawing live stream scheduled on Monday. That's what I've got going on Monday. I've just been doing that hustle that we all do as freelancers and mangling my schedule as a result of it. Like, something I love about this job is I have a ton of flexibility with regard to time. I can move things around a lot and on the fly. But the downside is that you usually have to have a lot of irons in the fire in order to be able to keep the lights on. And that means that your schedule becomes kind of brittle at times. And I've been playing around with time blocking this year. I haven't been very successful yet. Wrong layer. What layer am I on? I'm on the wrong layer again. This will be an interesting one to color. And then I think, yeah, I'm at time, so I'm going to wrap this up in just a minute. I'm going to finish Dame Lady Cat's face, and then I got to get to my other jobs. Right here. Too dark. Let's lighten it. There we are. We got flatted and 2 panels colored. Thanks everybody for hanging out with me. I'll be back on Monday, 10 a.m. And until then, all the links are right below me there. So, see y'all next time. Okay, bye.